So we've finished our first section, which is a little bit longer, some setting context. We have 3 more specific topics we're going to get into. The next topic that Prakash will be covering, and I'll kind of chime in as needed here, is around the idea of a value proposition canvas. This is going to be a focus around the specific discussions that we started around the customer segment and the value proposition. Why is that important? How do you develop it? How do you use that as a way to come up with ideas, products, services, and specifically other related topics that we'll get into around customer journey maps and design thinking. That's our next topic. We'll probably do lunch before we do the exercise, given where we are. It's about 11:30.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Please, Prakash, start.
Yes. One more thing, you can have the lunch here in the room itself. So
great. So come back to us before we start.
Lunch.
2 things. Are people interested in having a shorter lunch, meaning half an hour lunch, and kind of have working lunch type of approach? Is that okay? The second question is, I know some folks are anxious to get home for evening events, Saturday night. Basic suggestion was, can we do closer to 4 rather than 4:30? Everybody okay with that? Would you rather go 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock-ish? We'll try to do that. We'll see where we are. We'll try to finish all the topics, of course. We'll try to get it as close to 4 o'clock as possible.
I want to say it till 7.
Oh, okay.
Bye, Mark.
Just kidding.
We'll see you later.
So we'll take you to dinner with us.
Quite frankly, this kind of workshop could go 3 days.
Yeah, of course.
Because there's a lot
of
to do with it.
material.
There's a lot of material, and I'm surprised.
This is the $5,000 course, jammed into $100. So.
Prakash had a very short version of that that he fit in about 55 minutes last Wednesday.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but he did it.
So there was no workshop. We didn't have hands-on exercises at that time. And unless we do hands-on, it won't get ingrained into our brains, right? So, any questions on business model canvas that you went through in the previous exercise? Okay. We are going to dig deep into the same canvas, but with more emphasis on 2 segments, 2 parts, value proposition and customer segments. And then we are actually going to drill down more into customer segments, how you get into understanding more of that through some of the videos and some explanation before we get to that exercise. So before lunch, we'll cover all these topics, and then when you come back from lunch or during lunch, let's do the exercise that we will catch up on time. Okay? So, you saw the 2 most important segments, 2 most important sections of the business model canvas start with the value proposition and customer segments. Who are you serving and what are you providing to serve those customers? Let me go through this quick video and then we'll see what it says. It's a short 3-minute video. Strategizer is the company that came up with this value proposition canvas to dig deep into what you want, what you can do in terms of what you can offer. So,
Split on it, and I'll take it to you. Just going to go ahead and make it maximum.
Every day, companies design products and services to improve their customers' lives. But 72% of new product and service innovations fail to deliver on expectations. This means that customers don't care about 7 out of 10 new products introduced to the market. It doesn't have to be this way. Just like you create value for your business with a business model canvas, there is in fact a tool to intentionally...
Sorry, are you going to try to restart?
Every day, companies design products and services to improve their customers' lives. But 72% of new product and service innovations fail to deliver on expectations. This means that customers don't care about 7 out of 10 new products introduced to the market. It doesn't have to be this way. Just like you create value for your business with a business model canvas, there is in fact a tool to intentionally visualize, design and test how you create value for customers. It's called the value proposition canvas. The value proposition canvas is composed of two parts, the customer profile and the value map. With the customer profile, we describe the jobs your customer's trying to get done. Jobs can be functional, like getting from A to B, social, like impressing friends and colleagues, or emotional, like gaining peace of mind. You highlight your customers' pains, which annoy customers while trying to get a job done. Pains and negative outcomes that customers hope to avoid, like dissatisfactions with existing solutions and challenges, frustrations, risks, or obstacles related to performing a job. And you outline customer gains, which describe how customers measure the success of a job well done. Gains are positive outcomes that customers hope to achieve, like concrete results, benefits, and even aspirations. Use the customer profile to visualize, test, and track your understanding of the people or companies you intend to create value for. It's a map that becomes clearer the more you learn about your customers. The second part of the canvas is the value map. With it, you list the products and services your value proposition builds on. You describe in which way these products, services, and features are pain relievers, how they eliminate, reduce, or minimize pains customers care about, making their life easier. And you outline in which way they are gain creators, how they produce, increase, or maximize outcomes and benefits that your customers expect, desire, or would be surprised by. The value map makes explicit how your products and services relieve pains and create gains. Use it to design, test, and iterate your value proposition until you figure out what resonates with customers. You achieve fit by creating a clear connection between what matters to customers and how your products, services, and features ease pains and create gains. Great value propositions target essential customer jobs, pains, and gains, and do so extremely well. Your customer profile may contain countless jobs, pains, and gains, but your value map highlights which ones you intend to focus on. Don't forget, an outstanding value proposition can still fail if your business model is flawed. Successful companies embed outstanding value propositions in scalable and profitable business models. Use the value proposition canvas to create products and services that customers want. Get started at strategizer.com.
So, any questions on what you saw? So, if you look at what you did in your business model class section on your exercise, you did come up with customers' values and what value you can provide, but there wasn't a conscious attempt to see the fit. That's something that you need to do as part of your value proposition canvas. We also didn't look at more details on the customer segments themselves. What are they doing? What are the flow that they go through? How do they come to, let's say, lift in this example? What are all the things that they touch? What are the payment methods? What are all of those different phases that they need to go through? We'll look at all of those things as part of the section here. And that's part of your next exercise, to look at every one of those activities that the customer does, what the product offers, and how you connect them, and how you provide the fit between the product and the customer. That analysis is very important for you to be very successful in this area, right? So that's the next exercise that we'll do. But before that, we'll walk through all the necessary things, the customer profile, the characteristics, the assumptions, what we observe, what we verify in the market, and how we'll provide some benefits and what you design to attract those customers. Right? That's the purpose of this value proposition. So this you saw in the video. So it's just to illustrate what's there. Let's get to how to go to the customer profile. This is what we do in the exercises. We're just walking through that so that you know what needs to be done. And then either you grab a set of sticky notes and map out the customer profile, what are all the benefits they will get, how you will fulfill those benefits, what are their pains, how you can relieve those pains, all of those kind of things. You will look at that. You map out the customer profile in that exercise. So this is a set of tasks that you do in selecting the customer segment, each one of them, what are the jobs they do, what are their pains, gains, and how to prioritize them. What are we going to accommodate as part of our business model? Obviously, we cannot take everything and accomplish it in one phase. So when we prioritize, that's the set of activities you will do, and what are all the things that we need to do. You will take it to the next phase. How do we map it to the systems that we have to develop, and then how we are going to develop the systems. That's what you'll do in the next 3 exercises.
Sorry, I got
Yeah.
lost. Custom jobs? What is the jobs mean there?
What are the tasks that they want to do?
Oh, what the customers want to do.
What do the customers want to do, right? So here is an example of some person trying to get a taxi. I think because you went through the business model exercise or the canvas exercise, you already looked at what they want, what are the benefit, what are their gains if it comes on time, reasonable price, they are professional looking, just like how you were asking for, easy payments. What are the pains they have? They are overcharged, they are waiting for a long time. Other customers are also competing. The driver is not a safe driver. And what the user does really, calling a taxi, finding a taxi, giving directions to them. Do they have to do or not? Is it all taken care of? How do they pay? So these are the pains, gains, and experiences that the customer faces. This is for a taxi exercise that you looked at.
But then the interesting thing on that last slide, you mentioned taxi passenger in a specific location. So how detailed and granular do you want to get the customer segment to be? Is it based on just, like for example, the ones that we did, which was a disabled user, like riding Lyft? Or do you want to say disabled user riding Lyft in the Bay Area that rides Lyft from a hospital to home? Like how granular can you get? How granular should you get? And what are the pros and cons of doing that?
So at the highest level, you don't need to get granular, but sometimes what happens, Janet was asking this question, you may launch a product to say, hey, here is this area that we want to enhance. And so I want to consider how we are going to extend our product to accommodate a disabled person being able to get from point A to point B in Bay Area, for example. That's the new project that somebody is going to launch. You can do the similar analysis at that level, Janet, what you were asking for. So you can go down to that level, but in this exercise, we don't necessarily need to go to that level. But yes, at every level, you can come up with these kinds of detailed analysis.
And also maturity of the industry and also where you are in terms of positioning. So Uber has an internationalization strategy, right? So probably they are doing that by country. What they do in China and where the competition is China, and what they have to do there is completely different than what they do in Brazil, what they do in Portugal, as an example. So the segments is really up to you, the planner, besides that we are now discussing, we have a platform. Now we're discussing a sub-segment or micro-segment. How do you want to go after a more profitable segment? How do you want to expand geographically? How do you want to increase? Any number of drivers could cause you to decide what that sub-segment is that you're working on. There is no wrong answers. It depends on where you are in maturity of the company, platform, and where you want to take it, basically.
So day one, they started with San Francisco and New York, for example, in Uber case, right? Then they started expanding, and then they saw some other places where there were local restrictions, whether they could go or not. They had to overcome all of those kind of things, yes.
Don't you have to be a bit careful that if you restrict yourself to a certain segment, when you want to expand, you've ignored things that later on are going to become key?
Yes, that is true. You want to Okay, you don't want to go and develop things very specific to a particular segment. At least you want to develop the underlying infrastructure that's flexible, that you can accommodate for other needs as well, eventually. Yes?
Yeah, but don't you want, I mean, because this is still an Agile approach, you want to kind of think of high level, you know, category, and then you might want to go through, say, how do I want to roll this out to the market? Where's my market share? And then test certain ones and then create specific, you know, segment, you know, specific campaign to target particular customers, and then leverage that and build more enhancement and build more different type of clientele.
Yes.
Around there, right?
So please note that you don't do this only once. It's going to go on continuously because as you're expanding, you do this again and again and again with different experiences that you want, different gains that you want to give, different pains you want to remove.
And that also depends on the industry or the company that I'm working. For instance, we started. I had a project a few years ago for pizza chain store. So we started with small shop of one of the stores, keeping in mind that we're going to scale it across the nation. So for that store, we started from that segment, and we elaborated the entire to the entire nation. That depends on the market. How I can, as a planner, would approach the project and work with customer for that segment and business owners and bring up the values. Keep in mind that we're going to scale at some scales, at some level.
And there's a concept we'll talk about called the minimum viable product, the MVP concept. And again, MVP will have different contexts depending on industry and what role you have in it and where do you want to take it, who do you compete. There's a number of factors. These are tools, and the tools will be applied depending on what specific industry and what specific stage in the growth of that industry you're in.
Okay. Talk about the value proposition side of things here. Now, complementing the customer side of things, you have things that on the value proposition side, what are all the pains that you can eliminate from your product? There are, the customer carries no cash, or the driver carries no cash, or whatever. How do you handle those? How can you do instant bookings? How you do the driver assignment? You guys had a thing, I want a specific driver to come every time because I have a need. So when that becomes an important thing, that's the pain reliever that you're giving here to accommodate the customer, right? Similarly, from the gain side of things, what are all the things that you're doing to enhance the system? How the customers can rate your product so that other customers can understand what this service is providing, and how you create the experiences by providing a smartphone app that you were talking about in your experience thing. So you do all the products and services, you rank them, what's essential, what's nice to have, pain relievers and gain creators, and then you cut it off somewhere. Oh, I have only budget to deal with these kinds of things. This is what I'm going to give, this set of experiences. Now, how does it map to rest of the systems that I need to build as part of my company or my group, my organization, and then how do I go about doing that? That's the next part that will happen. Okay, so it's explaining that same thing, how it maps, each of the gains, how it maps to the gain creators, each of the features, how it removes the pains from the customer side, and what are all the mappings. So that's something that you will need to do in your next exercise, to all the things that you got from your plan for the product, how it is mapping to the customer's pains and gains and experiences. that's the mapping there. Some I can deal with, some I cannot deal with right now. So this is what I'm going to provide. Oh, okay. So that's the value proposition side. Now this is assuming that you know everything about the customer. Do you know everything about the customer? No. How do you go about doing that? So some of the things that we did in some of my projects that I was in Cisco, we did the customer experience journey. How do you go to the customers and understand what are all the things that they need to do to interact with? So Cisco was a company that was mainly driven by hardware. Services and software and subscription was all not thought of at all when the company started. One of the products that we did was the first product that was, well, WebEx and others were all there, but they came with some kind of old model thinking when it was incorporated into Cisco. So our product went from scratch to think about the entire customer experience. How do we revamp that? So you go, interview customers, find out what their experiences are, what's the current state, what's the new state that we want to be in this new model, and how do you get that experience? How do you bridge that experience? How do you bridge that today to tomorrow kind of situation, present to future? That's the customer experience journey that we're going to talk about the next one here. You go through the complete life cycle of, let's say, there is a customer who wants to take taxi. What are all the things that they need to do? They need to be aware of this kind of service being available. What they need to do for considering Lyft as the alternative that they want to do. What are all the things, like the company giving discounts or their reputation being higher, all of those kind of things. They need to actually purchase that service. How do you retain customers? How do you retain drivers? And how do you advocate this for the long term? This is just an example. I don't know whether I have my example still here or not, but we need to find out or put this in consideration when you are looking at the customer's wants, needs, and fears. What are all the things that you are doing in accommodating that customer? So that's the customer experience journey. We look at a short video on what that is about. There are lots of videos on that one. I just picked one that will help you walk through. Yes?
Food is here. It is really hot now. Would like to take the food and then watch the video. I'm all for it, but it's your choice.
It's a short video.
Sure, this is like 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me ask, is it the hot food that we should get to pretty quick, right?
I just wondering if you
Sure.
really want to enjoy
Yeah,
the
we
hot
can-
food is there.
Yeah, we can do that for sure.
Okay.
So you want to do 2 minute video before we
Yeah,
do
let's do that.
Okay. We'll then just click on it and see if it comes up okay. There we go. And maximize it, there you go.
Hi, I'm Megan Grocki from MadPow, and today I'll be showing you how to create customer journey maps. Journey maps are a visual interpretation of an individual's relationship with an organization, service, product, or brand over time and across channels. A journey map helps us explore answers to the what-ifs that arise during research and conceptual design. They should include items like personas, a timeline, the emotions being felt by customers, touch points, and channels where the interactions are taking place. So how does one create a customer journey map? There are 9 key steps. Number 1, review the goals for the product or service. Number 2, gather our research. Some of my favorite research methods include customer interviews, contextual inquiry, customer surveys, customer support logs, web analytics, social media, and competitive intelligence. Number 3, generate a list of customer touchpoints and the channels on which those touchpoints occur. For example, the touch point could be pay a bill, and the channels associated with that touch point could be pay online, pay in person, or pay via mail. Number 4, conduct an exercise called an empathy map. Empathy maps depict the various facets of a persona and his or her experiences in a given scenario. The goal of the empathy map is to get a sense of how it feels to be that customer in this experience. Number 5, brainstorm with what we call lenses. This means we generate ideas in a short period of time with words representing key concepts, brand attributes, or mindsets that help us look at a problem in a different way. Number 6, complete an affinity diagram where we organize ideas and find cohesion in the team's concepts. It helps us focus on the right solutions for this audience. Number 7, this is the part you've been waiting for, sketching the journey. This is where we put together all the ideas the team generated for how to improve the future customer journey. Get creative on how you lay it out. There's no one way of sketching a customer journey. Number 8, refine and digitize. If visual design isn't your strong suit, consider collaborating with someone who can turn your journey map into an impressive artifact. And lastly, number 9 is to share them with zeal. Shout from the rooftops and display them prominently in common areas. That's all. I hope you found this useful, and best of luck in creating your own journey maps.
Okay, so just very briefly, you saw multiple phases that the customer has to go through in interacting with the company, with the product, starting from the awareness until advocacy. I mean, those are just an example. There can be 10 phases, 20 phases, whatever it is. For each of the phases, when you recognize, you need to go through all these 9 key steps in solving that problem. Okay? So when you start solving or analyzing each of the phases, what they need to do, how they need to go about doing things, you need help with other frameworks as well. And we are going to show some other framework next on the design thinking framework, which will allow you to do that problem solving. We are not going to go through in depth in the customer journey map or in the design thinking as an exercise here, but that's to in another session if it's more detailed. Again, as David was telling, this is a 3-day, 5-day class. It can be when you go through the entire depth of what you need to do. But we are just going to introduce those topics, but in your value proposition canvas exercise number 2, keep those considerations in mind when you are going to come up with what you are going to provide as the pain relievers and game creators.
So do you want to go ahead and...
yeah, I'll just complete this.
Yes?
Oh, that's it.
That's it. This is the end of it. We're going to pause or let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
There you go. That's good. All right. So if you're okay with taking a working lunch break idea, we can go ahead and grab our lunch, come back here. We'll try to finish the presentation side of things, and then we can take a short break and then do the exercise. So we'll just do a quick checkpoint to see when you want to tackle the exercise.
There are a few more slides in this section before we get to the exercise.
The journey map is a continuous journey, right? Do you keep doing this every so often?
For different segments?
Yes, it is. Except that you can't reach out to
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Directly. Sometimes get reduction.
You learn some stuff, and then you incorporate that, and then you get something wrong. You seek feedback from each of those segments, more in-depth feedback. So that way you don't have to start everything.
Right. But I'm saying, like, you need to be certain of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially like you have touch points maybe different.
It does. Yes.
And the product management role is thinking about all of this stuff all the time. When do you engage them? How do you engage them? And what's the new opportunity?
And then I know we'll talk about this a little later, but then there's this notion of product energy and we have everyone has product management.
Yes.
Right. So some people are confused.
We can talk a little bit let the product manager like the outside interaction,
Right.
and feed it to the product manager.
So far so good. Can you some? Great workshop. I'm really not happy that I can continue today because of something else.
Oh, that's right.
Or you need to leave after.
He decided this was much, much better than the other opportunity.
Oh, you are running multiple things in different places today?
No.
Yeah,
I have a partner. I need to become the.
hard to get.
Yeah. Very gracious like this.
No problem.
No, it's hard. You guys are doing this every Saturday.
Not every Saturday, once a month we do one. It is impossible.
Yeah.
We don't have so many members who can take advantage of it, so you have to feel the advantage. So, yeah. I don't know, I need to really work on. I don't know whether it's a better job or a different channel to workshops to get a better response.
And also, during workday, some people, people all the time take 2 or 3 days away to go learn something.
Yeah.
So if the content that you have attracts them, for whatever reason they're interested in, then maybe on a Friday or some working days,
Yeah.
you can get away from.
Yeah.
So the thing is, this workshop is a full-day workshop.
Yes.
Like we did 7 videos for them. So 3 days, that means there is a guy to do it 2 days. It's not a 1 day workshop. So it's where to do 2 days. And I think we thought this is a better choice.
Yes.
It is a better option for them to come inside and work.
Yes.
But I understand that a lot of them have kids and there's a lot of other engagements on the weekend and they need to pretty much dedicate a whole day for this.
It's probably a balancing act, but I would venture against that if you kind of have once a working day month and a weekend month, you may get different audiences. Those who have family commitments can never show up on the weekend, and those who are busy work, they never can show up.
That's a good idea. Maybe we can go and check this thing. You can try basis. We workshop on 2 days, evening sessions like 10 about like 2 minutes, 6 minutes, so maybe we can see that. So the challenge again is a huge area. For example, I work in Berlin.
Yes.
I work in Berlin, and a week they come here for 6 o'clock is very difficult.
Oh, yes. Especially after.
So yeah, if you are working at Sunnyvale or areas in Silicon Valley, so it's easy to get to the workshop by 6 or 6:30. Otherwise, it's difficult. So those are other challenges. So let's see how. Again, this year I've really seen really good workshop times to visit for that. They've really got very good speakers, but my only unhappiness is like our members are not able to take real advantage of it.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, last time when I gave a PMI presentation, there were about 170 people. Sunnyvale small room.
So
This time there were only 25 or 30 people, right? Yeah. Right. So
again, this is a PMI event that's a long challenge. So economy is doing well.
that's
Very good people are really doing well. So they don't.
They're all busy.
yeah. Yeah. They don't stop.
They don't look at this. So this is more of a networking opportunity and looking for return. Then many times people take this just the previous day to continue. So that's what I'm saying. I need to come up with a better way to really. The content is amazing. That's my point. It's really useful to them. Even if you're doing well, it's still that's a good channel spent here.
Professional development opportunity.
Great opportunity to do.
And that's useful. Yeah, that's useful for a lot of senior level managers. Yeah, our workshops are tuned towards different audience. Probably that's why we've done this. We don't have a large gap here. We want to learn. That's why I'm here. Right.
I think there's a lot of it now. There's a lot of session. Now
posted this event on LinkedIn. So I would like to ask them, go on to the
Caroline, is that too fast that we went through here?
No, no.
Okay. Because I know I was seeing a little puzzle look in your face.
Oh, well, no. I'm puzzled anyway.
So where is plant located here? Close by the Santa Clara? The vertical equivalent. Yeah, right. So there's not there. There's not where? Oh, and you are in the Santa Clara. So what is
Nice dish outside if you want to try some.
When you start the section.
Okay.
3.
All right. So you want to go ahead and do the exercise and continue with this? Okay. Yep, sounds good.
That way we can just get this going quickly.
Sure. Yeah. So when David comes back, we can continue with the lecture part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
I have a request, guys, to everybody. Can I send a request to join my LinkedIn network, all of you? Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah, the reason I'm asking is, we posted this event on the LinkedIn, and you can, once I add you to my network, you can go back and put your comments, your experience on the workshop.
Yeah. And join us too, Hamid and myself. Please join LinkedIn network.
Vegetarian. The veggies are vegetarian, the Musaka are vegetarian, and then the salad is vegetarian. Oh, yeah, they get everybody on.
So I sent you the Uber.
Yeah, I will share that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, Prakash, you can go ahead and continue.
Is it recording?
No,
Yeah.
I'm copying.
Oh, okay.
Just start that
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I'm starting.
Oh,
I'm copying, so I have enough content.
oh, okay.
And the video is going already?
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay, I got you. So you have to copy it and then start, you're saying.
Yeah, we can wait for a minute. Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions on the customer journey mapping? This framework is another important framework for understanding
what you provide for your customers and how you can provide that. Okay. So we talked about the 9 steps here. To solve any one of these ones, there's a lot of human side involved, and you need some problem solving. And that creative problem solving is what we're going to talk about next one. A framework for creative problem solving. This is called design thinking. It's a framework that initially was started in Stanford in the IDEO office. We'll look at a brief video on that one. Essentially, it's a little bit unlike analytical thinking when you look at design thinking, because if you look at the problems, there is a business side of things, there's a technology side of things, and there's a human side of things. All these three need to come together to solve the problem. And wherever human is involved, you need to have a framework that empathizes with the human side of things and solves the problem in that way. So that's why it starts with empathize, and then you define what the problems are. You brainstorm all the solutions that are required. And again, unlike in analytical problem solving, where you know exact cause and what the solutions are, your brainstorming is somewhat limited. When a human is involved, the brainstorm can be pretty open-ended. And how much you go open-ended and how you bring closure to those are some of the important things in this ideation phase. And then prototyping becomes very critical to your solution. You may think that you understood what you have done with the customer by talking to them, but when you come back and prototype it and take it to the customer, this is not at all what I said. So you need to really close that very quickly with the customer before you even, that's the testing phase, before you even go into full-blown implementation of your business model, right? So those are the phases in the creative problem solving, and that's design thinking. In fact, in Stanford, in that lead course that I took, there were 2 courses dedicated to the design thinking process. And it's such a very important thing. And if you go on YouTube, you will see lots of different exercises. This has come on many of the TV channels as well, ABC and all. They have talked about what process they went through to create a new way of shopping cart. Somebody, some company gave them that exercise. How do you create a new shopping cart that solves a problem that current shopping carts do not solve? And it's a fantastic exercise they went through to solve a simple problem like that in the creative design thinking way. So let's watch a video to briefly explain what that design thinking is about.
Hi there. Have you noticed that the world is full of problems? There are big, hairy problems like poverty and disease, and small annoyances like misplacing your keys. However, the geniuses at Stanford have come up with a process that will broaden your perspective and help you create better solutions, no matter the type of problem. This process is called design thinking, and it's here to change the way you tackle problems. Design thinking encourages people to explore alternatives, creating options that have not existed before. Design thinking is successful because it focuses on the needs of the user. It's more than just good ergonomics. It's about understanding the context and culture of the stakeholders involved. This understanding is found using direct observation and qualitative data, which produces stories that people can really empathize with. Once the research is conducted, the problem solver is more apt to define what the real problem is. After diagnosing the true problem, it's time to ideate or brainstorm new ideas without the constraints of existing solutions. Because design thinkers learn by doing, these radical ideas are then made into simple prototypes that test possible outcomes. Rapid prototyping speeds up the innovation process because we only learn about the quality of our ideas when we test them in the real world. In the process of ideating,
cancel that too. So if you come up at the bottom, all the VM within VM within VM.
Any questions on the concept of design thinking, the framework? How many of you have heard about this design thinking? Oh, wonderful. That's great. Okay. Super. That's fantastic. So the next topic will just be, so we will use these ones to solve our problem, but let's just keep it on side. We'll walk through the digital disruption that's being created with all the new technology, and then we'll start on that exercise. So this actually is talking about all the technologies that is there that's disrupting our business. How many of you are working in areas of AI or technology? Yes, definitely. So my startup is in plug and play here, close by, and I see almost half of the startups are dealing with AI. It's become so pervasive, as Andrew Lee talks about. AI is the new electricity. Every company that wants to do anything in the digital space, innovate in digital space, needs to embrace AI. So it's very important, the machine learning aspect. Big data analytics becomes a precursor to AI. Without doing big data analytics, there's no point in embracing AI because it's all mostly based on teaching your computer about the data that's already available. The chatbot, conversational assistant, the natural language processing, all of those things are very important. Every field is filled with these kinds of solutions right now. Blockchain, I know we've heard a lot about Bitcoin or other currencies going up and down, but blockchain as a technology hasn't been leveraged in many environments yet. And again, when you look at the new startups that are coming, a lot of people are working on blockchain. Not as much as AI, but blockchain is also right up there. Cloud, mobility, all of those, software as a service, platform or infrastructure as service are very pervasive. They have become table stakes. Everybody needs to already be there. Otherwise, we cannot embrace digital disruption. We talked about the digital. We talked about the digital platform, APIs, microservices, cloud native. These are all the things that are also there that needs to be embraced.
This is especially important in your modernization initiatives. If you have legacy systems that have to be looked at, they have to be modernized in some way. The typical scenario is where you try to wrap existing services wherever they live, whether in COBOL, Pascal, Fortran, if it actually does the job, and if you can create the encapsulation needed so that it's a productive service that can be used by others, that is, in essence, the future of everybody's legacy systems. You want to preserve the value that that item is creating. You want to go ahead and encapsulate it, and you want to be able to publish the service that's available for others in the organization to use. So moving towards this API-based infrastructure and being able to manage this APIs across many different platforms and services that may be 20, 30 years old in some cases becomes a critical core competency. So if you're in IT, if you're thinking modernization, if you're thinking what do I do with my legacy, it comes down to if it's good enough to keep, how do I expose that to an API, and how do I manage those set of APIs? At some point, you're going to have extensive set of internal APIs and external APIs, and many of those will use REST-based, REST-based type of APIs to be able discussion around how do you modernize, how do you bring these technologies forward, and how do you actually, with minimal investment, bring some of these legacies to become a productive member of your core IT application portfolio and set of services.
Yeah, thank you. So new technologies are there in terms of being cloud native and microservices that can, in containers, we can encapsulate many of these things in containers and provide those services in a native way and pave your way to digital technologies and disruption. The next thing is on immersive experiences. You see in retail, there's a lot of work going on in augmented reality, virtual realities and all. How do you create those experiences? Very critical. Internet of Things we saw in the digital disruption, how many of the companies are trying to do. The robotics, process automation, driverless cars, all of these things are coming up. These are all the things that are driving digital disruption. And to embrace these things, we need to do this fresh analysis, what kind of value we can provide to new values we can provide to customers. If we don't do in our companies, somebody else will do. And that's why this business transformation and digital transformation is extremely important to embrace at this time.
And a lot of times the customer experience may be affected. Imagine a conversational UIs. Imagine chatbots. Imagine channels that could be enabled with some of these technologies. So all of this eventually becomes part of your scenario planning and the design thinking and revamping how you engage the customer in a more productive way. All of us now carry these mobile devices that we can't be without. So thinking about how to maximize that device and that channel becomes a core part of our design.
Okay, we are coming to the next exercise. You guys have eaten your lunch.
Okay, so this is again a page from your handout. And it's a very quick deep dive on the idea of the value proposition.
So keep in mind that you mentally walk through the customer's journey in interacting with the product, interacting with your company. And for each of the phases of the customer journey, see what you need to analyze and how do you create a product market fit, product customer fit. So that's the analysis that we need to walk through.
So basically, what do each customer?
For each customer segment, yes.
Customer type, yes.
So do you decide on a customer segment?
You should decide on a customer type that
choose
you
one.
want to do. That way, it's very broad otherwise. So it's good to decide on what you want to talk about so that if it's a senior, one kind of offering you need to do. If it's a student, something else you need to do. You know, so you just nail it down and then do that. You can use that for building a product eventually as well in the fourth exercise. So it's good to narrow it down, your scope. That way it can be more productive.
So how would we like to narrow it down to?
What was the one, we were talking about maybe doing, maybe make it a little more broader, maybe like focusing within the city? Instead of going down to a specific type of person, maybe just general.
Again, nothing right, nothing wrong. You guys decide what you want to nail down.
I don't know what you think. I kind of bring up the whole concept of somebody who needs to share ride within the city limit.
Yeah.
So that would cover, maybe local students and people around there.
Is that then make it too broad?
That would be my concern as well. Because I think, I think what will happen is when we get into the, can't here to get into some of the details, so when we get into like games and things.
They're going to be very different if you're a student and if you're a senior.
Then it's.
I think we need to pick students, seniors.
So for what it's worth, I like the idea that you come up with previously about the model where you build trust with the driver, to sort of build on that concept. So people who may be slightly more vulnerable. I don't want to specifically say senior, but just people who may have more vulnerable requirements.
Limited mobility.
Maybe have special needs.
Well, special needs can be separate too. They may not walk, they don't see,
But we
mentally challenged, whatever you like to call it, then their needs will be very different again.
Okay, so
This was one of the things.
Just choose a customer segment, work around individually for 10 minutes, then group.
There's a certain amount of reality when you think about it in the addressable market as well. So some of the more high-touch options are probably focused on a marketplace that may not be able to afford them. And so they may not be much of an addressable market.
So it's 12:20 now, we'll do 10 minutes of individual until 12:30.
Working with some sort of charity outreach or something like that to then provide those services. So the charity funds those services and then more vulnerable folks can consume. So I'm anchoring on that one point that you made, which was the idea of having being able to choose your driver.
yeah, I like that idea too, because that's kind of broad, because we can build a foundation to support that capability. And then when we market, we can do different market schemes, providing the same capability. Like if you want to be able to pick your own driver, you could do it, you know, for companies and stuff. So there's some different ways, and targeting to maybe just students, or targeting to babysitting, right? Taking younger kids to learn, or seniors, or something like that. But maybe the way where you could, I like to focus on capability, and the words in the category of
So what capability would you like to focus on?
We can use.
From a capability point
What about senior? How about the senior that needs to be driven around town?
Non-driving senior.
Yeah, non-driving senior.
Customer
Because I
segment.
think that could kind of really fit for young kids later. I mean,
Okay.
we want to prototype this, right?
Yes.
We prototype this, and then we turn it into more of a
So
marketing.
please be sure to choose your customer segment that you want to work on individually so that you have a common
Non-driving.
discussion.
seniors. Because I think that would come in with the fares, the trust.
Yeah. That, yeah, yeah, it is. The caterer. On your slide 30 handout, if you want to refresh your memory, this is a good slide. Page 30 of your handout has some of the ideas about aims and gains and customer profile. Yeah, we have two more minutes to the individual work. Yeah, and then we'll start the group work and discuss.
Thank you very much. I would love to be part of them, but
yeah, there's actually a dispenser. Okay, if you're done with our individual work, let's go ahead and when the team is back.
yes, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Both of you on the
Thanks, sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So as soon as you guys are ready, we can get back into our group discussions and pick your scribe, whoever that is. Hopefully somebody else should take that role next time.
There you go.
So we don't overburden the same individual.
And then, yeah, assistance, get them basically get their safety. And then, yeah. One thing that I think we're making an assumption, which I'm not sure if we should, is that these people have.
Exactly on the that understanding technology to in order to book.
So we have a huge scribe.
And also the phones on the phone might be too small, and also not me.
Yes.
Might be online too.
Your team shrunk.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just have cash. So,
Ability to pay by cash.
yeah.
Yeah, but accept very smooth payment.
Where is customer jobs?
No, we're not.
The customer
We're doing
jobs.
this, but anyway, so let's talk about it.
I was thinking with non-driving speakers would be visits to friends, shops, hospitals, events like
The
this.
first thing is like
And it might be people who are shared
Technology
by
knowledge,
might
yeah.
go with their
Basically, I
friends,
could hard
pick up
call
their
it.
friends.
So it's difficult for the person to get in and out.
So I thought of similar, almost exactly the same.
Pretty self-explanatory.
But I didn't.
And then payment, right? Payment was the other one. As a job and then
more about life
last
sequence.
lastly, I put
Intro
like
is
the safe driver. They're
So
great if they
I
get the safe
thought
drivers.
Yeah.
as safety and like gains and pains.
Safety.
So I guess that's pains. Whatever would be. I generically call
Fair,
the gain
no need to
social.
try, door to door.
Yeah.
Which would be with the full amount.
Sorry.
I put ease of using the service, which is fine. I actually could add the use case, which is basically the person who's driving me, and they help me to, like, for example, use
So
case
would
would
you
be,
like customer jobs?
if I'm a senior citizen,
Customer jobs?
Yeah.
so can this person
Well,
help me get there?
Yeah.
Because we're looking at seniors,
hand it
right?
off to someone?
The customer job
They might
is
also
getting
have a cane
to the right.
or walker
If I were
or
living in an apartment,
thing, so they
Or
would,
even
sitting home.
yeah, carry
Yeah.
my stuff, right?
Yes,
Just to the
that's
right.
true.
Just walk
Yeah,
there.
that's really,
Walking there.
yeah, assistance to location, yeah, so that's good to
What did you do before you?
But yeah, I mean, that was like,
before you got to the
this
line?
use case could be.
Well, things I need to know when it's arrived, right?
Even before they were.
So my pain,
Yeah, then been.
oh, when I ordered, so I have some, so I have some pain, like a lot of pain. Because my personal grandmother
Because usually then.
Knowing the truck driver too.
doesn't
Yeah.
have a mobile phone, right? I'm a senior who doesn't have a mobile phone.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It would be a game.
And I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be for me, you know, like,
Right.
this person.
Exactly.
Well, I had underdone
It's
how
the
to
same
also
guy
carry
carrying out
cash.
every time.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
now
that'll
my
be,
needs
that'll be more, I don't know how to
none
pay.
of my needs
What's the
private
pay?
And I also had lack of IT savvy.
Yeah.
Something simple, basics.
Right.
Yes,
No,
it's
trust.
trust.
Grandma doesn't do internet, when you're 70,
Lost change.
right, and you
Yeah.
just go and go regular, You don't
So
have
gains, I
internet
think
and
we
so
have
forth,
done,
so.
right?
But actually, many seniors do because they want to Facebook with their grandkids. I was amazed when I worked in ophthalmology, which was a lot of senior people, and this is 20 years ago, how many of them had internet, had computers, and going along to class because they wanted to communicate with their grandkids, who insisted on email and Facebook and the other things. So that the grandchildren like the seniors into that.
That's true, but I'm kind of looking at a Asian community, right, that they do play, they do have iPads, but they play the games.
Yeah,
They play games and in their own language.
Yeah, but I mean, the lack of IT savvy, grandkids installs the app, it has to be simple to use.
Correct.
I also put lack of mobility.
Capable drivers
Right,
have some.
and that's why the mobility is getting to the right.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's what the
not
job
just
is.
making more than just getting to the ride, but just lack of mobility in general. They want to go have their hair done. How do they get home to where they want to have their hair
Right.
done? Whatever it may be.
And then the other pain part I have, just like,
Or something where you said, I think you said.
when you get drop off, when you get picked up,
Like
that's
voice
when
text.
you drop.
And also take cash.
Get card ride.
Yeah,
they take
except
it
various forms of
when it's
payment.
up. So it's a round trip thing.
And the other pain I had was dependency on others.
Oh, and
Because
also on the game.
Yeah.
They're often dependent on a family member to take them to wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
So those are my pains.
Yeah, for the game creators, I put one that's basically,
Yeah, trust the driver.
I put don't know drivers, same thing.
Yeah, trust the driver,
all the
yeah.
different things that are coming up. And so it does like a reminder saying, hey, you have this coming up.
So those are all my
I'm
pains.
looking for you.
My gains.
To drive where you know.
Mobility,
And
flexibility,
make sure that person's
Yeah,
aware.
that's the one.
low cost,
And then,
easy
and then
billing.
basically, yeah, so basically integration.
Know your cost at the start.
Hospitals.
So before you get in the car, you know it's going to cost you $10 or whatever. With a cat taxi, you don't. It's a professional driver, and it gives them social life.
Well, yeah, the gains also confidence, that I am sure that, that, because you also want to, when you gain, when you're looking at customers, you have to look at their emotion.
So one thing is like the area
So it's that trust
availability,
and
it is like
confidence knowing that somebody
ubiquitous, right? And
yeah.
anywhere I think
And it's
it
taken
can be
care of. I don't need to
available.
worry about my ride.
Doesn't depend on the location. Because see, in today's
That's
world,
safe
they have to call a service.
So I like
that
I will
service might be available in that area, might not be. And
Yeah.
if you are
I
using
think that's
this
an intrinsic
app,
challenge.
it can be available anywhere.
So what we're talking about is a higher grade service. We want people who are going to be able to assist people into the vehicles, maybe assist them to their doorstep of the destination.
Senior citizens
Those are the
track
things
the
to
very
encourage
first
costs, because otherwise why would a driver want to do all that
Oh,
work?
the senior citizen.
There has to be an incentive for a driver.
And
It's
also-
an experience point. Because I've got a very arthritic. I get out of a car carrying a
I'm doing an
Some of
IoT
them want to
project.
carry
so
it to the door and offer it.
my
Some
thought
of
was
them
there.
just couldn't care less. And you don't get that.
But this is one where one of the solution product is you customize your need.
Yeah.
Now, if you're my
So there's an
grandma,
app where you can actually
thing is
track,
that sometimes
if you
I don't have to do
download
it
that
as a
app, you can
granddaughter
track
or a
that
daughter
on
to
the
come up do for you.
Yeah,
Pay for
well,
you,
yes,
grandma.
exactly.
You don't have the money,
Something
senior
else.
doesn't have the money.
Yeah.
So I do understand the local cost, but we're not really targeting the senior, the
targeting
us.
us.
We're talking about convenient price.
Yeah.
So thing is, I think because of convenience, there might be a little higher cost versus premium.
You're getting safer drivers. You're getting
We can only track
more care.
The other thing is you need to compare it against what's
There's
the
a button that
outreach,
says.
Please take 2 minutes to complete your presentation material.
which is low cost, but that keeps them waiting
I mean,
forever.
that person can
Right.
press complete
But that's-
anytime.
But that's the VTA version.
Right, but you don't have.
They did involve
But it's,
new
but you have to
feature
wait
called
for it. There are, anyway,
So
and then game creative.
like if somebody is fearing some
I'm not sure that
driver
we
backlash or
those
something, you
yet.
can immediately
Most of the ones we would
have that emergency call.
were more
So that feature Uber is
Yeah.
included now.
So customer jobs, finding a driver,
Yeah, it's getting the ride.
getting picked
Yeah, but
up.
scheduling the ride, right?
Yeah, finding
Getting
a driver,
driver.
scheduling the ride.
And then my job is also getting out to the
Products
car,
and services
right?
like
If I was
senior
here,
citizen
I need to make sure I know how to
user
go out there to meet them.
wants to
And when they arrive.
Yeah, but
If you're
they're,
running
that is a big
an
item.
apartment complex, which you don't know that,
ability to
well,
pay
actually
by
do,
cash,
because they
check, or,
text you now.
and then my customer job is I have to pay. Those are my points, right? Those are my process.
They had a safe
We also,
Right.
product services,
And you think that,
Typically supposed to be one or two.
and I
maybe
can
one or
make sure
two.
that they can be at the same
Like
place.
now when they just have one.
So if I were doing streamline, you know, process mapping.
Yeah,
that's
anyway,
the thing I would need to do, I need to pay them.
I think we need to get on to the products.
Game creators and pain
Yeah. So I put products and services, single ride, share rides.
Where are you?
Products and services.
Products and services. Okay.
I've had single rides, shared rides, and the choice over basic versus premium.
I also put down a pre-order subscription.
Ready to group?
That somebody else would.
Ready for group report out?
Right.
Yeah.
Put that as a
You're done with
that's
it.
what I mean, that's
Put
where
that
I
as a
think.
written, there is a part of it, okay, that's.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes, yes.
Why should I- yeah, why should
Oh,
I-
yeah.
Saying, adding on another sign
So,
there, like
you're done
sign or
with
something, so
the
senior
group,
citizens.
so for the individual. I think
One extra one I had
So you want to talk about the percentage?
You would know.
So you just do a report out.
Yeah.
Can you guys get ready for your prescribe to start doing
I
report
like
out?
that idea, I like that idea, I could charge more.
Yep.
I could charge
Okay, this
more.
time you're going to go on the left side, ask the scribe on the team left.
Because I also did for the service.
Go first.
Communication mechanism is in what, products and services?
Yeah.
2 more
I
minutes.
like the profile, I also put down the crane reliever, there's preset profiles and needs ahead of time for them. So I guess maybe when we sign up for it, they get more of a customized profile of what their needs are, any special language needs and things like that.
Okay.
Do they like big profile on what I need to know or no?
We're about to start a report out, they're trying to finish
Creator
their,
knows how to do
they want to make that perfect presentation.
Game creator,
Amazing things.
contacting the passenger, also a
Yes.
guardian
Yes.
or a
Yes, and customer.
emergency contact.
Ideally, we can do both, either or, but it's better to start with the customer. Many companies say, this is my product,
So you know what
how can I
grandma's
create
gonna
the right kind of
Yeah,
customer
or,
segment for
you know,
this?
because
That's
it's-
usually
Where
not the best way
grandma's
to go. You want to start with the customer
Right.
and then decide what the
Well, it depends
capabilities
on
are.
what
and
buy it,
products.
like what opt-out is or not. Sorry? Game curator is the.
Automatic billing, I think. Flexibility to choose within the app certain features they want.
And allowing proxy person to order a application.
Okay, so if you're ready, anytime you guys are ready, please.
So.
Who's your customer segment that you're
Customer segment is a non-driving senior.
Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Popular market.
We stole all of your ideas. So let's see, I think let's start with pains, gains, and then customer jobs. So pains, may not have a cell phone, may have some language barriers, doesn't know how to pay, may have mobility issues, may have dependency on others, and may have a fear or trust of trusting someone else. Gains we have are social life, mobility, confidence, and knowing upfront what things are going to cost.
Very good.
In terms of customer jobs, it was first of all finding the driver, getting help to get into the car. When you arrive at your destination, getting help to get into the location that you're going to. Options for round trips, so when you're ready to go back,
Very good.
you can go back. And then easy payments. So then if we think about products and services, pain relievers and game creators. So products and services, the idea of single or shared rides. Prepayment as an option. So if you have relatives who may be able to pay for it, they should pay for it. And custom hardware. So rather than having to have a smartphone or some other device, you have a custom designed device for the senior. Game creators notify someone else, not just the customer when they arrive at the destination. Automatic billing and configurable app features that can be pre-configured. And that sort of lends a little bit into the pain relievers as well, because we have the idea of preset profiles, where you can have a bunch of different features that you've elected. And then the idea of the known driver list, so you have a trusted driver that you can rely on.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Excellent.
So let's go to our slide.
We're going public in about 3 months' time.
Very agile team.
All I can say is ditto and time to market. It's hard. We'll do the same. Okay, so starting with the pains.
Look like your customers saying the same thing or different?
Same thing.
Okay, got
Same
it.
thing, yeah. So pains is technologically challenged, getting in and out of the vehicle, payment mechanisms, and fear for safety. Then gains, it is cheap fare, better than the existing ones. Door-to-door service, assistance to get to the location, and also like getting in and out of the car. And in the customer jobs, it is pick-up, drop-off, and the assistance to have somebody take to the location and bring it back. Coming to the products and services, we thought about the same, like an app with bigger icons and better readability, and ability to accept cash, check, or other forms of payments like cards and stuff. And then car identification mechanism, like if a person wants to identify like which is my car, then they can identify that. In the gain creators, one of the different things we thought about is like if we identify some driver as the trusted person, then we can have that ability to get that repeat service. So that was one of the
favorite driver.
Exactly. And then the other thing is like the drivers can be CPR certified or first aid certified, so that if there is some emergency while travel, then that can be availed. And then the other thing is integration with calendar or getting reminders to the driver and to the person who is booking, so that both of them are updated at the same time. So email and calendar integration. And then the other factor is voice to text, so that it can be ADA compliant. If somebody is not able to see or hear, then there can be ADA compliant apps. And in the pain relievers, we can also have senior citizen discounts to elevate the cost.
Wow. Excellent, excellent. Very good. Good job, both of you. So you can see this obviously is an area that will be coming soon. We'll see how fast. Or we can start documenting this and sending it to Lyft and say, there's a small charge if you want to use these ideas. So this is exactly what should happen within the context of a company who's trying to define new products, revised products, enhanced products or services, and the frameworks that we've been discussing, and once you get good at it, become like part of the culture. So it's not a random discussion that happens every so often because somebody had a meeting, but rather some frequent set of activities, interactions, and outputs that hopefully can be communicated to the rest of the organization. Increase transparency, increase alignment, increase the general progress that you can make towards your vision. That's the basic idea and the value of tools like this. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Those ideas that can hopefully you can take back to the office and at least share with others as influencers who are part of this process.
So we didn't go through the customer journey mapping itself here, but I think you guys are very familiar with the pains of the customer and what they can get gains and because it's a common customer base kind of thing, and we've all used this service, so we didn't have to go through that to get to this position in pains and gains.
Yes, and each one of these areas, as you probably have already discovered, could be a half a day or a day discussion, right? Just imagine just design thinking or customer journey mapping and trying to put those skills and knowledge to use. It could be a very good exercise for folks who want to take it to the next level of skill and application. Okay, so now we're transitioning into the third segment.
Actually, we are way ahead of schedule.
Now we're ahead of schedule, huh?
Yeah. But in case people want to take a...
Yeah, since we wanted to leave at 4, we're going to try to continue our pace. We're pretty good on schedule now. But there's quite a bit of content on the PI planning section, which is the next section around SAFE. That's probably going to have a lot of interactive questions also. So I think we want to probably do a faster segment here, and then leave the last 2.5 hours to be mostly about SAFe and its application.
Yeah, one of the leading questions, if you're looking for your next career move up on the ladder, one of the major questions that are being asked in larger enterprises is, have you done any PI planning? How do you approach what you've done, what you want to do, given this situation, what you would do, given that challenge, what's your idea? And this is just becoming a common practice in large enterprise level PM position. So I'm looking forward for PI planning session.
Yes, we have a very robust section that Prakash will be leading us through. So
thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll bring up a whole lot of other questions that are related.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. So you've learned a lot about how do you document what you're trying to do as a business. What is the business model all about? How do we communicate it? How do we keep it simple? Again, I hope if we left you one thing is simplicity is preferable, much more preferable to complexity. The only way that the organization can get aligned or behind a vision is for it to be simple enough to be understood by everyone, rank and file, and frontline, all the way up to the senior executives. Most organizations fail that test. Nobody knows the business model. They don't know why we're buying the next company. They don't know why you're spending some money in this project, how that is related to the strategic direction or strategic competitor you have, so on and so forth. Sometimes that's intentional because they want to create confusion to avoid competitors knowing, but I'm not sure if it adds value. To me, transparency adds a whole lot more value. Getting everybody in your 10,000 person company to know what you're doing and why is much, much more valuable than trying to keep it from your competitor knowing that you're investing in this area. Hopefully, when you're investing in something, regardless of who knows about it, it is something that's going to create value that is unique and specific to you. Not every company has the ability to provide the best warehouse management capability. So it's fine if my competitor knows that I'm investing in warehouse management, as an example. So the idea that I'm going to keep my strategy secret doesn't really, in real world, it doesn't work. In real world, what works is transparency, is communication, is understanding, is alignment. Now, that's too tall of an order for most companies, but that's the reality of successful companies know what they're doing and why. Look at Apple. Apple has thousands and thousands of employees that know exactly what's going on with the next release. How much do you get in the media? Zero. Because they've learned for them to succeed, they need to have these discussions, they need to know everybody having this the knowledge. Everybody even has the next generation product in their pocket sometimes for 6 months before it's released. Why? Because they want to test it, they want to get real information, they want to understand usability, and they all keep it a secret. It's not that they said only 5 people know. Everybody knows, but everybody also knows that disclosure means you're no longer part of the organization. So transparency and simplicity. That's key to succeeding long term. So far the focus has been on product development, right? How do we think about product development? How do we think about our customers? How do we engage the customer and analyze their needs so that we can be much better at choosing the right kind of products and features and capabilities that would add value? But most of us may not be involved in a direct product to the customer kind of discussion. A lot of us are involved in supporting back office or finance or logistics, all kinds of other things that companies do to run their business. And in large companies, when they talk about agility and talking about innovation and transformation, they simply mean, I want to do more of what I'm exactly doing now. It's not about a whole new product offering necessarily, but maybe it's about changing how a process works so that it costs less, or it's shorter in duration, or it actually completely changes how the industry works. So that's basically more maybe process innovation rather than product innovation. So, of course, Agile methodologies can help in both of those areas, looking at process, looking at product, looking at what we do to deliver services. This topic, called value stream mapping, is a lot more about the idea of how we create value for the end customer using existing processes. Okay? So when you hear lean, how many people know about lean or have heard about lean? Okay. Do you use lean in any of your organizations as a methodology in some way? No. Okay. What about the idea of Six Sigma? Yeah. Okay. Very good. So again, some organizations use it as a way. Typically, lean and Six Sigma can go hand in hand. And usually they're organized on some kind of organization referred to as total quality management or operational excellence or something along those lines. Which means that we have the skill sets to be able to go after specific problems, be able to tackle process issues, understand the metrics that are needed, produce the control charts, produce the actions needed to improve something. So lean is basically the results of the work that started in the probably 50s and 60s. After World War II was over, we actually had two plants, MacArthur in Japan and Marshall in Germany. And specifically, as part of the rebuilding of these economies, we sent our scientists abroad. One of those scientists came from the Bell Labs, Dr. Edward Deming, who just passed away about 10 years ago or so. And he was, again, a scientist and engineer who was responsible for making sure that the phones, the old phones that we had, the black, old, heavy phones, were of the highest quality. Because that telecommunication infrastructure in the early parts of our century, or last century, was a huge deal. Having connections, having switchboards, and having those phones work all the time. He actually developed a number of different disciplines and specific methodologies around putting in place management methods that could produce the highest quality outcomes and products. That body of work was under the concept of quality management. And specifically, Japan was a very early adopter of those ideas, even before US companies became hot on it. So that process started in the 1947-1948 timeline, and it pervaded throughout the industries such as auto to begin with, and it continued into consumer electronics and other industries over time. There's actually an award in Japan called the Deming Award, and it's given to organizations who have the highest quality products and services. And through that effort, actually, they became one of the dominant economies and also producers of auto and electronic products throughout the latter half of the 1900s. So some of you may not remember this, but in the 80s, everybody was worried about Japan. Just like we were worried about China now, it was Japan then. And back in those days, basically Ford and GM and Chrysler had dominated the industry for a number of years, but as of the late 70s, especially after the oil shock and the inflation that caused, everybody was trying to find more energy efficient cars, smaller cars. So Japanese started to become dominant. And by mid-80s, by mid-80s, pretty much Ford and GM had no choice to figure out what they were doing wrong. So while they were ignoring Deming and Duran for the last 30 years, all of a sudden they had to invite them back as consultant to come in and tell them how to change their approach. So again, back then, quality is job one. Ford's motto became quality is job one. GM had to completely revamp how they approach manufacturing and processing and all that. I'm giving you that history just to kind of tell you about where lean came from. Many of these disciplines started in Japanese companies based on the original work that Dr. Deming did. And eventually, there's thought leaders within Japan that took those ideas and put them into use and created this zero inventory, just-in-time approaches that had the highest output in terms of quality and throughput. So there's a bunch of thought leaders in Japan. Many of these ideas came from those organizations, and there's books about this topic, like Toyota Way, is about all of this idea of removing waste from your operation. So that you have exactly what you need to be able to produce X number of products based on customer demand. So that's where the birthplace of these ideas are. We want to be able to apply these ideas to what we do and how to innovate processes now. So lean is one of those methodologies which is all about removing waste from whatever we do in a company. And as a starting point for some of those discussions, we want to be able to understand how value is created for our customer. The way we do that is by creating what we call a high-level business flow called a value stream map. So when you hear value stream mapping, is a very specific terminology. It's what lean methodology calls this initial activity around creating this flow, high-level flow between all the key functions that together deliver a certain capability. And it always starts with the customer, somebody who wants something by initiating a request of some sort. And you work your way back to all the things that happen, including getting products from your, or getting supplies from your suppliers of products, services, or whatever you need. And that it becomes the highest level view of how value is created. So value stream mapping is lean. It's about the idea of plan, do, check, act, PDCA. You've probably seen this cycle before. It's very common in any kind of quality initiative. And it is about figuring out exactly how to go about getting the information about your current environment, coming up with a plan, monitoring to see what kind of results you get, and based on those results, you change and you modify your approach, and this life cycle continues. So continuous improvement is a fundamental foundation behind this topic. Okay. So how do we go about creating this view that we want to understand from an end customer point of view? Who is the customer? What is the user persona? Who am I trying to serve here? Is it a pharmacy? Is it a retail pharmacy? Is it a supply manufacturing company? Is it an accountant that is running certain operation within a certain company? Users and end customers could be anywhere, and you could start with any of those views, somebody who initiates a request and eventually gets that service or product from you. So value stream maps is coming up with who is that user persona and how value is created for them to receive that service or product from us. So first of all, we want to go ahead and separate the repetitive processes from unique ones and focus on things that continue all the time. We don't want to work on exceptions, we want to work on the rules, things that happen all the time to create something. And when I say something, it's because this could be across any industry. It could be all types of activities. We want to be able to map the flow and decide what is value added and what's non-value added. Value added is things that we do that actually produces something that the customer cares about. Other things are things that we do because something that we need to have. I want to have a quality check here because I'm worried about this guy's view on this. I have an extra process here so that auditors are happy. I have an extra step here because this process is always late, so on and so forth. You have lots of waste almost in every organization, in every process. Being able to identify what those value-added versus non-value activities are is a part of deciding how to create that lean process for an organization. How you do that is through what's called observation or Gemba. Gemba walks are simply walking the steps of how things are done in your organization. So if I want to know how marketing produces its promotional brochure, spend time on who creates the content, how do you do it, where do you go to research, how do you put it together, what template do you use, what package do you use to create that called the Gemba. You walk the process from beginning to end. And you want to make sure that you understand what that process is, and then you're collecting data along the way. When work is actually being done that produces something valuable, as well as when things are just sitting, waiting for something to happen. The non-value added stuff. So the key becomes applying a series of lean principles that allows us to create that perfect optimal process. That when a request comes in, it goes as fast as possible through the full life cycle without or with minimum waste. That's the basic idea of lean, getting all the waste out of the process. So we're trying to innovate our processing capabilities. So again, you do this by doing it. You walk the process, you document it, you come up with the as-is, you come up with the to-be, and the metrics you need to be able to decide all these things. So this is the life cycle that you usually want to consider. So you usually start with the product family or customer persona, depending on what topic you're trying to tackle. Define your objective for the mapping process, and you define what's called a charter. It's a document that says, why am I doing this? Who's going to benefit from it? What's the purpose of this? And by the way, all of these things have templates and tools. There's lots of training, online and offline available, and all kinds of online tools that you can simply download for free. So again, it's a methodology. The tools are well known and pretty much available from a lot of sources. So we want to identify and document our current state. We do interviews, we do Gemba, we develop the value stream map, we identify the performance metrics for them, and we start to analyze what actually can be done to help improve the environment that we have. Then we facilitate a future state design. Workshops to basically look at what should be the future performance, getting the leadership on board about the target state, and prioritizing what needs to be done and why. Being able to decide how exactly this should happen. Yes, please.
A comment on that. I have practiced this at least 20 times. In one of the shortest customer I had, in 3 months period, we went through the value stream mapping. We just put on the chart, and that's, you'll be surprised, for car services, auto body shop basically. How I put everything that Hamid is talking on a whiteboard, divided, and within 3 months, just from the waste in material, paying my salary. That's how value is visible to owners, to customers. In 3 months period of practice, customer paid my salary by saving on materials, and not even talking about how fast car would go through the system. Or we never had, after a few times, we learned, we got back to the system. They never had a car coming back to resurface. That was the quality of what was. And this is one of the shortest thing that I've done. Thank you very much. This is so valuable in any industry. Just a comment.
That's great. Thank you for that example, David. Very important, because these are, again, you all hear all these terminologies about design thinking this, product innovation that, save this, but being able to link it to actual results is a lot more difficult. It only comes through people who intentionally were asked to do something, they did the analysis, they showed the result, because most of us do things, but not a lot of times we're able to say, this was the before, this is the after, we saved exactly 1.5 million a year, or something like that. That requires intentional action on your part or whoever is taking on these kind of efforts. So that's a critical part of this whole process. Make sure you document why we're doing this and how we're actually getting benefit from it. So the last part of it is the execution, of course. You create many charters, the prioritization is done, identify owners for these, come up with timelines, and basically come up with a transformation plan to improve the performance and be able to get better results from whatever you're looking at.
So one more thing
Please.
I want to add to this one. Even when you say about customer persona and all here, this not necessarily applies only to the highest level customer and then back down. It can be any intermediate level steps as well. That there is a producer and then there is a consumer, so you can do the value stream mapping even at those intermediate levels as well.
Excellent point. So it's not just about external customer, right? There's many processes that have downstream processes at their customer. So you could actually focus on just one thing of delivering X from this location to this location for this department. So the customer happens to be internal in that case, and you're trying to improve that interaction. And what initiates it is an internal customer. So in all of this, customer could be flexible in terms of your definition of how you go after the problem. So what do we see in most organizations is usually broken processes. How do they manifest themselves? These are the kind of issues that you need to see. It's very complex. Nobody knows how things happen. We just know it happens. There's a bunch of people who know what to do, but everybody has a little piece of it, and they just do it every day, but nobody knows the big picture. How something got from the initiation to the end. We see a lot of people that go around the process. Everybody who wants to make sure something important gets done, they go see the CEO, they go see the COO, they go see the manager of the shop to make sure that their stuff is getting done faster than the rest. There's a lot of excessive information exchange that goes on, and a lot of keying and rekeying of the same information over and over again. You see a lot of high ratio of checking and reviews. I have checkers checking the checkers, that kind of scenario, lots of reviews. You see managers spending a lot of time firefighting, very common, a lot of organizations. No one manages the entire process. Everything is little pieces. I have my piece, but I'm really good at it. Mine is the fastest part of this process. But when you look at it systemically, you're about 3 times slower than the next guy in line. Why is that? Even though you have the guru in the middle that's doing a great job. Systems thinking, systems view is the only way to optimize output and the outcomes. And finally, we throw money at it, but it doesn't really seem to improve anything. We still get the same results that we've always had. When you see these things, that means there's a problem with how we think about the end-to-end process, and nobody is thinking holistically about how to tackle the problem. So, a lean digital enterprise, in our definition, is an organization that, in essence, has consistent and repeatable processes that allows them to take a look at the waste that goes on in all of their core critical processes. There is certain process or capabilities that is what makes you unique, whatever those things are. Sometimes it's managing data, sometimes it's about delivery, sometimes it's about new product development. There's some processes that make you unique and who you are. Those should be the focus when you're trying to build on your strength. This is what I'm good at. Or this is horrible, it's 3 times worse than anybody else in the market. It has to be at least average. I gotta go in and get those at least to the average. So the key here is that we're trying to put in place the ideas and the processes that allows us to reduce waste so we can improve flow. By creating a flow, we actually are eliminating all the waste. We can apply digital technologies where we see the opportunities, and also by automating and eliminating waste, we can actually create an exponential increase in customer value. And think about any industry, doesn't matter what industry, you can easily find these processes that could be looked at and have a huge impact. And you can actually show the impact to your executives when you do this. And this is the foundation. If you look at a lot of the SAFe material, you'll see these concepts of lean as a part of how this whole framework comes together. So Dean Leffingwell actually started to bring all of these ideas. That's why we call it the Lean Agile methodology, because he actually integrated ideas of Agile and Scrum with one of lean thinking and created the SAFe framework. And created, in essence, repeating patterns of activities that you need to have in place to be able to achieve your objectives. So a quick video on value stream mapping, and we'll spend a couple more minutes and get an exercise. Sorry, this is
Hi, we were viewing the first value stream mapping tutorial ever. This tutorial will teach you the basics of the value stream mapping, and at the end of these video lessons, you will be able to draw your first value stream map. The tutorial is made of video lessons that will cover the principal elements of the value stream mapping, and in the notes of the video, you will find bonus materials. Each video is a lesson. Let us start here with the first concepts. Why value stream mapping? The main reason is that if you focus on one process and not on the whole system, your customer could not feel the difference. Focusing only on one process is like to improve only the engine of a car by leaving the wheels deflated. So to improve your company, you have to focus on the flow and the value of the entire stream, and not only on one single point. Benefits of value stream mapping. It is a collaborative tool, can be understood by everybody, help you to focus where it counts. You can see both material and information flow. Where to start value stream mapping? There is no point to start mapping the entire company. It is important to start where you can get results quite immediately. So, the best place to start is where a customer is unhappy or on SKUs that give the company a significant income. For example, if the company sells a SKU 1, 2, 3, 4 that generate an annual income of $10,000, and the SKU 5, 6, 7, 8 that generate $500,000, I will strongly suggest mapping the second one. Okay, now you know why to use the value stream mapping and where to start. Let me now explain to you other points. 1. Map by walking with sheets and pencil. It is not a PC exercise. Walk the shop. 2. Map yourself entirely and starting from the end of the stream. This will help you to better understand the process. 3. Do not rely on the data in the system. Look for reality. Speak with people. 4. The point of the value stream mapping is not the map itself, but genuinely understand the process looking to material and information flow. 5. Draw the current state. Do not jump to conclusions. That's everything for now. In the next video, I will describe to you the first element of the value stream map, the customer demand.
Okay, so that's a quick view, and of course, if you're interested, you can find lots of videos online to kind of continue to pursue your interest in this topic. But what I thought would be useful is for us to just spend a couple minutes together, just a couple of examples, and then have you do an exercise. And then we can continue with our SAFe and Agile specific discussion. So, as we said before, it's about all the activities that you perform or organization performs to transform an external or internal request into a good or service. So a bunch of higher level processes, and by the way, there's microprocesses that are under each one of these areas. We're tackling the highest level processes, usually between 4 to 8 boxes at the highest level. And then each area that has specific issues, you will do detailed Kaizen or more detailed process mapping for. So it's all about understanding what you're trying to deliver to that customer, and as soon as they initiate it, all the things that happens that actually allows that to be delivered. So this is the actual form that it takes when you actually have documented it. Of course, Lean started in the manufacturing process. That's its birthplace. It was created for the industries that were trying to produce autos or produce certain products, and we're now trying to apply it to the services, which is a lot of what a lot of organizations do. They're more service-oriented than product-oriented in some cases. So here, typically, there's several things. Customers at the top. That is basically the starting point that we're trying to see what is it that they're requesting that initiates our process. There's going to be a process box that is actually given a name, whatever that name is, depending on what process you're looking at. There is information about number of people, there we go, involved in actually delivering something. Okay, I'm not sure why this is happening. It's getting too hot. Okay. The Epson light is flickering, I don't know why. It's not ours. I don't think it's ours, at least. Yeah. It looks like the Epson light is going in and out. Hopefully it will stay with us for the day. So basically, a number of people involved, and then there's a bunch of data elements that we collect, and we also look at the relationship between the two process boxes, which are in essence the input for the next process in line, the downstream process. So this is the basic thing that you see when you're trying to create a typical value stream map. And in the bottom, typically you collect information about timelines, both what we call processing time as well as cycle time. Okay? So those are the basic elements that you use when you create something like this. Okay, here we go. So this is an actual list of the type of data that we want to collect when we walk the process. The key parameters, the most important ones, of course, are time and quality. How long does it take to do something? Think about that. Anything that we do, the key cost driver is how much time it takes to do something along the way. So understanding the actual time spent in adding value to something by doing something to it, or waiting for something to be ready in the next step in the process, that is actually what's costing us X number of dollars in a company. Certain things are happening, of course, in manufacturing plants and all that, but there's other steps that are human-oriented and it has to take a certain amount of time to do that. Our goal is to minimize the amount of time it takes from the time the customer says, I want something, to the time they actually get that delivered. In some cases, we want it to be instantaneous. So specifically, we're going to collect time details, two things, processing time and lead time. Processing time, actual time spent on doing something, right? So the customer said, give me this, and 4 people were involved. One person had to spend 3 minutes, the other person had to spend 20 minutes, the next person had to spend 3 minutes, so on and so forth. You add them all up and say, okay, 35 minutes of work went into this. But did we deliver the service in 35 minutes? The answer is usually no. Usually it was a day, or 2 days, or 3 days. And what is all of that other time? This is called non-value added time, or what we call cycle time, or lead time. So this is a time where things are sitting in some kind of wait mode because the other guy is busy, or cannot handle it, or overwhelmed, so on and so forth, right? So when we look at the entire process, time is one key dimension, and how much time we spend on something versus how much time we have to spend in waiting is basically two key parameters. The third time dimension is how much we're sitting in queue time or inventory time. I'm waiting for the next guy to be ready for me. The 20-minute process is done, it's sitting in the queue of the person who needs to spend the next minute on it, and that process took 24 hours for a variety of reasons. When you understand that, you say, well, how can we change that? Maybe the organization process should be different, maybe training should be different, maybe people should be different, the skills may be different, so on and so forth. And then, of course, quality is another key factor. Knowing that you have complete and accurate information being passed on from one process to the next is another key element. many of the delays are introduced because we have imperfect or inaccurate data. That's either not collected or collected but captured incorrectly in process. So what you're doing, you're passing the wrong information down to the next process. What does that do? It creates rework. Because they assumed that this was correct when they started working on it. Said, oh no, something happened, an exception happened, this is no longer accurate. And I have to now go back to the original process and say, why did you send me this, or can you fix this? The rework sometimes becomes 80% of the work. I have clients who spend 80 to 85% of their time on rework. And they assume that that data is just part of the process. There's nothing we can do to help it. There's always going to be bad data. The answer is no. It has just been the way it is. It's always been by default that way. You could actually go back and revisit the reasons for inaccurate or incomplete data. Very key, right? You get what you get from the process because you either have designed it properly or you just let it be what it is. And most organizations end up with years of legacy process and data that over time become the worst process possible. So you know if you have one person doing the whole thing, it will be about 1 day, but it goes to the company, it becomes 55 days, just because of how it evolved. And there's, of course, depending on what you're dealing with, could be batch sizes involved, number of people based on demand, setup time involved for machinery, whole bunch of other things that may be relevant. But the most important data that we want to collect is time and quality. Those two factors is definitely needed for the analysis. In general, we also want to understand the customer's view before we actually go after data. So here, we come up with a formula that says value is created based on the quality of the service and the service itself divided by what it costs to do it and how much time it took to deliver that value. That ratio is the generation of value. That's how actually value is defined in this formula. And we're saying, of course, this ratio can be improved by looking at the key areas that the client cares about. So in this case, we have 3 ranked criteria that we looked at based on customer feedback for a broker of healthcare insurance, in this case. So in this case, the important factors were coverage, meeting the person's need, how much it cost, and then time to complete and get the coverage. Those are the 3 top criteria in this case. The current performance of the process is B+ as it relates to the coverage that it offers, B for cost, but how long it takes is F. 9 to 11 days to get that policy processed through the system. So what we need to do is figure out what to do with each one of these that are important factors for the customer. So in this case, A looks like having all the features that competitors offer. Unless I have that, I'm not considered to be at least in the top tier of that particular area that I'm trying to go after, in this case health insurance. Cost of coverage, it has to be equal to or less than competitors. We don't want to be the most expensive unless there's a unique factor that drives our unique position in the marketplace. And finally, we have to be at least 5 days or better. 11 days is not acceptable for the industry. That happens to be the report part that tells us what needs to be done in this area. So this is that example. This is processing individual and family plan insurance policies. The high-level process that we go through to underwrite and give a policy to the consumer. There's an application process that you can fill out, fax or send to the center. Receiving it, sorting it, and logging it into the system is the next step in the process. Processing that application, then deciding whether you're willing to insure that individual or not. Those are the basic high-level processes. So each one of these process boxes has outputs, which are the input for the next process in line. Each has a certain number of people involved in it. It happens to be a couple of people involved in that receiving end. Actually, the initiation end. The receiving, sorting, logging is 4 people. 6 in the processing of the application and 8 in the underwriting decision. And these are the key information that's been collected for your review here. So the processing time happened to be 20 minutes here. That's what it took to fill out the application. The actual lead time is 1 day. That's how long it takes for we can get the application. Percent complete and accurate, only 55%. So if 45% of the applications have inaccurate or incomplete data, that could be because we have a bad application or poor instructions or too complex of a process, whatever it is that's causing that to be that bad. And of course, 10 apps per job is what we have in this process. Same thing here, processing time 30 seconds for the receipt and logging, 95% accurate, which is not too bad. 50 apps per person or job, 200 apps per day is the volumes. Next step in the line, again, 7 minutes, 13 because of the duration of the wait time, 95% accuracy, so on and so forth. So you get a picture of what's going on, right? So you're actually presenting that high-level view that eventually gives a policy to a consumer. Okay? In the bottom of it, what you see is time passing. Okay? Both processing time and lead time is captured along this dimension down here. And I'll give you a couple more examples here. What we find is that for many organizations, when you do the ratio, what we call activity ratio, which is processing time to lead time, it is horrendously small. So in this case, there's only 23 hours of work that actually gets done in this process, but over 1,320 hours that passes before this particular process is complete. This is not uncommon. Percent complete and accurate happens to be about 75.6%. Again, room for improvement. But the key point here is, in this case, we're trying to map the recruiting, information flow, and metrics. As you can see, this company has problems finding and bringing on board employees. Even though the processing time is not very high, it takes a long time to work yourself through this process. Identifying need for an employee, finding and selecting a candidate, negotiating an agreement with them, and then onboarding them. Okay, so again, just examples of high-level stuff. Yes?
I work in insurance software companies. So
okay.
I'm just interested. The data you have here is based on one customer?
This is basically, you're collecting the entire view of what happens when somebody applies for policy. So it's looking at all of them, the repetitive processes, not the exception, the most common repetitive processes. And this is actually the next level down. In order for you to really understand what's going on in each one of these steps, you need to basically start to map this functional map that has the hiring manager in the top, the HR recruiter who's involved, the candidate's role, and the systems. What you're doing is basically you're seeing the interactions between the different personas involved in this process and the actual activity that goes on. And for each one of these, you start to capture the processing time and the actual lead time. What does that give you? You start to see where the problems are. Maybe I should double the number of people doing X. Maybe I should train the employees better. Maybe I should provide better instructions to the applicant, whatever those ideas are.
Or it could be, you want to develop a system, a product that does that phase, and keep that in mind, because when you do this exercise, that needs to feed into the next exercise, which we are going to talk about, where a digital product comes out. Because of some enhancement that you need to do.
Exactly.
One of those transitions.
A lot of times, it's basically the silo-centricity of the actual systems involved. You actually have to enter data in 3 systems. It's all done manually, and the quality happens to be 75%. So 25% of the time, you're going back and fixing things, or reworking stuff. So
if you have an automated system, it could automatically populate all the 3 areas. And that could be one of the things that you will come up with as a work product that you will do, that you'll take it to the exercise 4 and say, oh, how am I going to design that? How am I going to implement that?
Exactly. Yes, go ahead.
But the left side of the chart is more about assigning a person to do things.
These are the personas involved in the process, right? We're not assigning anything. These are just these are the actual roles that are, there's a hiring manager that actually wants to have somebody, right?
Yeah.
There's a recruiter that takes certain steps to find those candidates. There's a candidate who eventually responds and has an interview with the employer. And there are systems that have to be updated in some way along the way, because you can't do everything manually, right? It has to be eventually supported by some kind of system. So this is what this is doing, is showing us all of the interactions between all the roles, and this may maybe 5 people doing this or 200 people doing it. This is a global operation or a small company operation. Go ahead.
And going through this process would basically identify what we can automate, if any. For instance, in terms of entering in one system that propagates or manually re-entered into 3 other systems, a very simple API would do the job and would cost the the process tremendously.
Exactly. So what you find when you do this, you say, all I have to do is just have this kind of these two integrated, or buy one single, or choose to buy from a company that has an enterprise integrated solution that everything is in one system and the process is 5 times faster. It could be something that you create, it could be something that you buy, it could be something that you work with a partner on. All of these opportunities become available to you. But the key is understanding what's driving your current performance. And Amazon is a master, right? Because they know exactly what it takes to get a book to you, get you a song, get you a movie, get you a pair of shoes. They know exactly what it takes based on what it is. And imagine the number of times that it comes from a local warehouse. They've optimized it so much that actually a majority of times things that are popular is coming from 20 miles away and delivered within 2 hours in a lot of cases. Well, that means they pretty much know exactly what you may buy, how to make it be in the right center, and exactly the driver is going to take it to your neighborhood, right? Having that capability to know that level of detail. Where does that come from? Operational excellence, value stream maps, the details of what it takes to get it done now. How can I improve it? What kind of software can I write to eliminate some of these system issues? That's what they're master of, right? Making sure that process is as automated and as efficient as possible. And then, once you have that, you have those maps developed, then you'll know exactly some of the key opportunities. It may be training related. It may be a process change that has to be done. It may be more Kaizen or improvement opportunities for a specific aspect of the operation. It may be applying a disruptive technology like blockchain to have contracts done in a different way than what we have now through an escrow company. Any number of factors. So imagine this level of analysis incorporating the ideas of disruptive technologies. What if I had a monitoring device worth 5 cents that is embedded into this product and it sends the information to me on a continuous basis, so I know that this is running low, this is about to fail, this is about to improve, this is about to, all of that stuff. Internet of Things can give us data about every aspect of our operation. And these are not necessarily expensive processes or devices. Very, very low cost, but embedded in every device around us, providing the information that you need to know. Amazon tells you exactly when something is going to get to your home if you wanted to know that, because they track it from the point that you order it to the point that it leaves the warehouse shelf, onto the carrier, onto the distribution center. Every aspect of it is fully mapped. And that's basically the basics of value stream mapping and Lean. Now, we're talking about one aspect of Lean, of course. There's a whole bunch of other activities that we can get into around how do you run specific Kaizen activities, how do you actually do process mapping at the micro detail level that you need to be able to collect around specific performance areas. It's about the kind of interactions you need with the executive team to get support for this. Also, this is used to help define the teams that we create in the SAFE methodology. So one of the things that SAFE does, it says, one team is not enough. You need a team of teams to be able to get large projects done. And you need to coordinate their activities in some way, in general. So if you have a team of teams, what do we call that? With SAFE, it happens to be called trains. So think about a team of teams being the train. So the conductor of the team is the Scrum Master, right? And the conductor of the train is your release train engineer. And there's other roles that we'll get into, like product owners and product managers and architects who are involved in supporting all of this. Value stream maps allow us to understand the relationship between your development resources and the specific business capabilities that you're trying to improve in some way. So if I have people working on mainframes and Unix and Windows applications, a lot of times I organize them working on, well, the guy knows Windows, give them 250 applications that are in Windows, in C++. And I have 5 people who know mainframe COBOL, give them the 45 applications that are in mainframe COBOL. It has nothing to do with what happens from a business point of view. It usually has to do with the guy knows something about a technology. I better give them all, I don't have 50 COBOL people, so the 4,500 COBOL application all end up with 5 COBOL guys. And they're all about to retire. That's the typical scenario in an IT shop. What we really want to do is we want to get the right experts to work together to solve a business problem. So that's why SAFE suggests that you do some level of analysis to understand the value streams of how you create value for a customer, organize your development resources with the systems that support that process so that they cohabitate working on a specific problem. Sometimes I'm refactoring COBOL code, sometimes I'm writing integration APIs, sometimes I'm running around fixing data quality issues. That may be one person or 5 people, but they're specifically focused on the next set of backlog items in my either sprint or team backlog, or working on broader issues having to do with product vision and product management across multiple teams. SAFE brings the discipline of knowing how to get these teams to work well together towards a vision, towards the business opportunities, and delivering on a continuous basis based on value. It's not about, oh, the 5 things that executives agreed to by drawing the line. No, it's very specific. I'm actually creating value by working on these specific process areas. There's 3 systems involved. The things that I can do for a system are 550, but I'm working on 4. Those 4 are specifically improving this process and this outcome. And I can change that value proposition anytime when you tell me that, oh, I got to worry about this thing that Amazon did. Fine. These 3 things come off the table. These 2 things get added. And I'm only working on the next 2 weeks worth of stuff. So anytime you told me that stop, all I'm stopping is 2 weeks worth of stuff at worst case. And I can shift towards the area that has the highest value to you. This process of continuously understanding how value can be prioritized, how do you create those short increments of work that have value or the highest value, that's the benefit of working in a framework like SAFE. And we'll get into this in more detail. Okay, so exercise. Very quickly, we want to get into SAFE specifically. What we want to do is, again, taking the same idea. You're part of that operational excellence team of Lyft. You've been asked to determine how to bring employees on board faster. It's taking us too long.
Actually, can we make a small variation based on what they've chosen as their exercise?
Yes.
Instead of employee onboarding, look at driver onboarding.
There you go.
For you both chosen senior support kind of thing, and you need to do certain things to bring those drivers on board. So instead of employee onboarding, just make it driver onboarding.
So you're both the individual and the scribe.
Yeah, and after this exercise, we can take a 15-minute.
Yes, we can take a 15-minute break and we come to the SAFE stuff after that.
Both of you read my mind.
Okay, so I have 1:37, so we'll take till about 1:47 or so to do the individual work, and then we'll get into a 10-minute group discussion.
So we won't know the timeline segment, right?
Well, you can assume. Basically, in this exercise, the idea is for you to know what processing time is, what lead time is. Just assume what you like and say, oh yeah, typically it takes 5 days to do X. So that's fine, you can just agree on it and just write it down. The point is for you to think through the process of developing something. And assume that you've done the walk through the process and you already know it's 5 days, as an example. Or you know it's 30 seconds.
Driver onboarding, that means they're already employee, right?
Well, it could be that somebody said, I want to be a driver. They have to send you their driver's license and car information, whatever it is they need to do, right? Just think through that process. They eventually have to be validated through maybe a processing center. They have to go show the car, maybe. And then eventually they're going to have to receive some kind of a confirmation from you that they've been accepted. And maybe they have to show you some kind of maintenance record, insurance record, whatever those things are. Just think through, if you were Lyft and you had any random person that could be a driver, what would you want to know about them?